So there I was, a 45-year-old black veteran just trying to move into my inherited lake cabin, when this HOA Karen in her $80,000 BMW calls the cops and tells them I'm obviously stealing furniture, because apparently black men can't own lakefront property in her perfect little world. Let me paint you this picture. It's 2 p.m. on a peaceful Tuesday. The smell of pine needles is thick in the air, loons calling across the crystal clear water. I'm Marcus, fresh out of a messy divorce, finally catching a break with this cabin my great-uncle Ezra left me. I've got my IT consulting van backed up, hauling in boxes when this blonde nightmare storms over like her Botox is about to expire. "What are you doing to our neighborhood?" I show her my deed. She doesn't even look at it. "I don't care what fake papers you have. You don't belong here." The crunch of gravel under her designer heels as she speed dials 911. "Yes, there's a suspicious man with a truck stealing furniture from the Hendricks property." 20 minutes later, 2 bewildered cops are apologizing to me while Brenda Whitmore, HOA president for life, apparently, is shrieking about property values and the wrong element. Her parting shot as she clicks away, "Enjoy it while it lasts." Oh, lady, you have no idea what you just started. What would you do if someone called the cops on you for the crime of existing while black in suburbia? Where are you watching from? I need to know I'm not alone in this HOA nightmare. Let me back up and tell you who I am, because this story makes a lot more sense when you understand what Brenda was really up against. I'm Marcus Thompson, 45, spent 12 years in the Army before getting into IT consulting. Recently divorced, my ex-wife got the house in Atlanta. I got the debt and weekend custody of my 2 teenagers, Jasmine and Kevin. Just when I thought I was financially screwed for life, my great-uncle Ezra passed and left me his lake cabin in rural Georgia. Uncle Ezra was one of those guys who bought lakefront property back when nobody wanted it, 1962, 2 acres of pristine wilderness for what you'd pay for a used car today. The cabin's a classic A-frame, cedar shingles, weathered silver gray, needs some TLC but solid as a rock. Floor-to-ceiling windows facing the water, stone fireplace, the whole 9 yards. Serenity Coves is this little community of 47 homes scattered around a spring-fed lake, mostly retirees and weekend warriors from Atlanta, the kind of place where you wave at everyone and nobody locks their doors, or so I thought. Enter Brenda Whitmore, 52, blonde highlights fresh from the salon, driving cars that cost more than most people make in a year. She's been HOA president for 6 consecutive years. Nobody else wants the job, which should have been my first red flag. Her husband Roger works at the local bank, seems nice enough but clearly terrified of his wife. No kids, so Brenda treats the HOA like her personal kingdom. The woman is obsessed with standards. Mailboxes must be forest green, trash cans invisible from the road, grass height not exceeding 2.5 inches. She's got a measuring tape in her BMW and she's not afraid to use it. Day 2 of my new lakefront life, I'm sitting on the deck with my morning coffee, listening to the gentle lap of water against the dock, breathing in that clean morning air that smells like pine and possibility, when I hear the crunch of tires on gravel. Brenda emerges from a white Mercedes this time, clutching a manila envelope like it's a weapon. She's wearing a tennis outfit that probably costs more than my monthly child support. "Mr. Thompson," she says it like my name tastes bad. "I have some concerns." She hands me a certified letter citing 15 violations. Unpermitted shed, built in 1987. Inappropriate commercial vehicle, my work van. Unsightly equipment, a backup generator. Total fines, $2,850, 30 days to rectify or face legal action. I'm reading this thing, and the smell of her expensive perfume is mixing with the morning lake breeze in a way that makes my stomach turn. The audacity is breathtaking. "Ma'am, I just moved in yesterday. The violations existed before you arrived. Previous owner's negligence doesn't excuse current owner's responsibility." I checked the county records that afternoon. The shed was properly permitted. The van is parked legally on my own property. The generator is recommended by the power company for rural areas. Every single violation is either legal or completely made up. But here's the thing about bullies. They count on you not knowing your rights. Some of my neighbors are friendly but nervous. Frank and Dorothy Casey, this sweet elderly couple next door, wave and smile but won't make eye contact when Brenda's around. The Johnson family, young parents with 2 kids, seemed excited to meet me until Brenda paid them a visit. Now they hurry inside when I walk by. Only person who seems immune is old Pete Rodriguez, who's lived here since the 70s. He just shakes his head and mutters about that woman whenever Brenda's name comes up. That first night, lying in Uncle Ezra's old bedroom listening to the sound of water lapping at the shore, I realize I'm not just dealing with a control freak. I'm dealing with someone who sees my presence as a threat to her carefully constructed world. She has no idea who she's messing with. Brenda wasn't done with her little power play. Day 3, I'm sipping coffee on the deck. That first sip always tastes better with morning mist rising off the water, when a white county truck crunches up my gravel driveway. Out steps a building inspector looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Mr. Thompson, got a complaint filed yesterday about commercial operations at this address." I invite him in, show him my commercial empire, a laptop, printer, and cell phone on the kitchen table. The guy's practically apologetic, keeps glancing around like he's embarrassed to be there. "Sir, I gotta ask, you been having issues with your HOA president?" He lowers his voice. Someone's been real persistent about this property. Filed maybe a dozen complaints over the years about the previous owner, too. That stops me cold. Previous owner? Yeah, old Mr. Hendricks. Nice guy, documented everything. Said the same person kept trying to get him evicted for violations that didn't exist. He shakes his head. Between you and me, I think she was hoping he'd just give up and sell. After he leaves, my mind's racing. I head to the crawl space under the cabin, flashlight cutting through dusty air that smells like old wood and mouse droppings. Uncle Ezra was a pack rat and jackpot. There's 3 banker boxes stuffed with correspondence, 15 years of letters, lawyer threats, certified mail receipts, HOA violation notices by the dozens, all signed with that familiar flourish. Brenda Whitmore, President. The woman had been waging a paper war against Uncle Ezra since 2008. I'm sorting through this treasure trove when my phone buzzes. Derek, my lawyer buddy from Atlanta. $300 I can't afford, but sometimes you gotta spend money to save money. "Marcus, you said this woman's been HOA president for 6 years running. That's weird. Most states require annual elections, financial reports to maintain legal standing." I can hear him typing in the background. "Let me check the state business registry." "Hold on. Holy shit, dude. Your HOA hasn't filed required paperwork since 2021. They're not even legally recognized anymore." My heart starts pounding. I remember reading somewhere that organizations lose their authority when they don't maintain proper registration. What does that mean exactly? It means every fine they've issued in the last 2 years is worthless. They have zero legal standing to enforce anything. I'm sitting there in Uncle Ezra's old recliner, legal documents scattered around me like confetti, when it hits me. This is why Uncle Ezra kept everything. He knew someday someone would need ammunition to fight back. That evening, I'm grilling some bass I caught off the dock, enjoying the symphony of frogs and cicadas, when Frank Casey appears at our property line like a nervous spy. "Marcus," he whispers, glancing toward Brenda's house. "Dorothy made cookies, chocolate chip." He hands me a plate that smells like pure comfort food. "She wanted you to know. That woman pulled the same stunt with the Johnsons last year." "What kind of stunt?" "Complained to the county about their kids playing basketball. Too much noise," she said. "Tried to fine them $2,000 for having a hoop in their own driveway." Frank's voice gets even quieter. Then her real estate company sends them a letter a week later, lowball offer to help them relocate somewhere more suitable for families. The pieces slam together like a puzzle box clicking shut. This isn't about property standards or community harmony. Brenda's running a systematic extortion racket, harass residents until they crack, then swoop in with her real estate license to flip their properties for profit. Frank shuffles his feet in the pine needles. "Your uncle figured it out years ago. Said she'd already pushed out 3 families before he started keeping records." As Frank melts back into the darkness, I sit on my deck listening to a beaver smack the water somewhere across the lake. The sound echoes off the hills like applause. Uncle Ezra hadn't just left me a cabin, he'd left me a smoking gun. But Brenda's not done escalating. Next morning, she posts on the neighborhood Facebook group, "Concerns about new residents' activities affecting community safety and property values." Vague enough to avoid a lawsuit, specific enough to plant seeds of doubt. 3 likes, all from accounts created the same day, amateur hour. I screenshot everything, document the fake profiles, start building a file that would make my old Army intelligence unit proud. Every lie cataloged, every harassment attempt time-stamped. Brenda Whitmore thinks she's playing chess. She's about to discover I learned strategy from people who played for keeps. Brenda's Facebook post was just the warm-up act. 3 days later, I get a call from my biggest IT client, a medical practice that's been keeping my lights on since the divorce. Marcus, we received some concerning information about your business practices. Anonymous tip saying you might be operating without proper licensing. My stomach drops. Dr. Martinez, I've been licensed for 8 years. You've seen my credentials. I know, it's probably nothing, but we have to be careful with HIPAA compliance. Maybe we should put the contract on hold until you sort this out. After I hang up, steam practically shooting from my ears, my phone rings again, then again. 3 more clients, all getting anonymous tips about my business. Someone's trying to destroy my livelihood. But 2 can play the anonymous tip game. I spend the afternoon researching Georgia real estate licensing requirements. Turns out agents who engage in aggressive solicitation tactics or harassment of property owners can face license suspension. There's even a complaint form online. The next evening, I attend what Brenda calls an emergency HOA meeting at the community center. The building smells like old coffee and floor wax, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. 12 residents show up, about half the active community. Brenda stands at a folding table looking like she's addressing the UN Security Council instead of a room full of retirees. We're here to discuss security concerns regarding our newest resident. She doesn't say my name, but her eyes bore into me from across the room. I've prepared a petition requesting a background investigation. Frank Casey raises his hand tentatively. Brenda, what specific security concerns? Commercial operations in residential areas, increased traffic, unknown associates visiting at all hours. Each lie delivered with courtroom confidence. I stand up slowly, pulling out my phone. Actually, let's talk about legal operations. Did everyone know this HOA hasn't filed required state paperwork since 2021? The room goes silent except for that buzzing fluorescent light. According to Georgia law, organizations that fail to maintain registration lose their authority to enforce rules or collect fees. Every violation notice issued in the last 2 years is legally meaningless. I start handing out printouts of the state business registry search. Here's the proof. Your HOA exists only in Brenda's imagination. Dorothy Casey gasps. But we paid assessment fees last year. To an organization with no legal standing, you might want to ask for receipts. Brenda's face cycles through confusion, anger, and something that looks like panic. These are minor clerical oversights. The HOA has operated continuously since when? Show me the articles of incorporation, the board election records, the financial reports filed with the state. The mini twist comes from an unexpected source. Roger Whitmore, Brenda's usually silent husband, clears his throat from the back row. Brenda, honey, didn't you tell me you were handling those filings? His voice is quiet but carries in the silence. You said they were all up to date. Every eye in the room swivels between them. Brenda's perfect composure cracks like ice on a warming lake. Roger, now isn't the time. Actually, it is. He stands up, looking tired in a way that goes deeper than sleep. Folks, I apologize for this mess. My wife's been overly enthusiastic about community standards. I had no idea she wasn't maintaining proper documentation. After the meeting dissolves in awkward murmurs, Roger approaches me in the parking lot. The smell of honeysuckle is thick in the warm evening air. Marcus, can we talk? Privately? We walk to the edge of the lake, where moonlight turns the water into liquid silver. Roger kicks at the pebbles on the shore. She's not a bad person, he says finally. But she gets these ideas, about how things should be, and when reality doesn't match her vision. He trails off. Roger, she tried to destroy my business, called in false reports. He nods miserably. I know, she's been under pressure, financial stuff. Her investment properties aren't doing well, and she gets desperate when she's scared. This is the real mini twist. Brenda's not operating from a position of power. She's acting out of fear. Financial pressure makes people do stupid things. How desperate are we talking? Roger glances back toward the community center, where Brenda's still inside, probably plotting her next move. Desperate enough to make mistakes. Big ones. He walks away, shoulders slumped like a man carrying invisible weight. I stand there listening to the night sounds. Bullfrogs calling, fish jumping, somewhere in the distance the lonesome call of a screech owl. Uncle Ezra used to say the lake talked to you if you knew how to listen. Tonight it's telling me Brenda's house of cards is already falling down. I just need to figure out how to help gravity along. The next morning I submit that real estate license complaint, complete with documented evidence of harassment tactics. Not to destroy her, but to put her on notice that actions have consequences. Then I settle in to wait. In my experience, cornered animals always make the biggest mistakes. Brenda's next move was straight out of the Desperate Housewife playbook. I wake up to the sound of a diesel engine rumbling in my driveway at 6 a.m. Through my bedroom window, I watch a guy in coveralls pounding no trespassing signs into what I'm pretty sure is my front yard. I throw on clothes and head outside, bare feet crunching through dew-soaked pine needles. The air's got that crisp morning bite that makes you feel alive, assuming you're not dealing with property line warfare before your first cup of coffee. "Morning," I call out. "Mind if I ask what you're doing?" The guy looks up from his post-hole digger, sweat already beading on his forehead despite the cool air. "Lady hired me to mark HOA common areas. Says there's been trespassing issues." "What lady would that be?" "Blonde woman, drives a fancy car. Said she's the president or something." I pull out my phone, show him the property survey I downloaded from county records. "See this line? You're standing about 20 feet inside my property boundary." His face drops like a rock hitting water. "Ah, shit, sorry, man." She showed me some map, said this was community property. He starts pulling up the signs. Lady seemed pretty sure about the boundaries. I bet she did. After he leaves, I walk the actual property lines with my survey printout. Turns out my great-uncle owned a 50-foot strip along both sides of the private road leading into the community. Information I'd overlooked in all the excitement, but information that suddenly feels very important. That afternoon, I drive to the county courthouse, a brick building that smells like old paper and bureaucratic patience. The property records clerk, a woman who looks like she's been filing deeds since the Civil War, helps me understand what I'm looking at. "Your great-uncle granted the road easement in 1987, she explains, finger tracing the legal description. "But see this clause here? Easement conditional upon maintenance of neighborly relations and respect for property owners' rights." I read it twice. What does that mean exactly? Means if folks using the easement start causing trouble for the property owner, the easement can be revoked. She peers at me over her reading glasses. "You having neighbor problems, honey?" "You could say that." "Well, revoking an easement's serious business. Cuts off road access completely. Most people try to work things out first." Walking back to my truck, the implications hit me like a thunderbolt. Brenda's house sits at the end of that private road. No easement means no legal access. Her $850,000 lakefront property becomes worthless overnight. "Uncle Ezra, you sneaky old fox. You left me more than a cabin. You left me checkmate in one move. But the game's not over yet." That evening, I'm grilling chicken on my deck when I notice something wrong. The generator that powers my essential systems during outages is bone dry. I'd filled it 3 days ago, and it only runs during power failures. My security cameras, I installed those after the trespassing incident, tell the story. 3:17 a.m., a dark sedan creeps up my driveway with headlights off. Someone gets out, does something near the generator, then leaves. The license plate's obscured, but I recognize that silhouette. The next morning brings a thunderstorm that knocks out power to half the county. My neighbor's backup systems hum to life. Mine sits silent, sabotaged. But I'm not some helpless city boy. 12 years in the Army teaches you to plan for contingencies. I've got a backup fuel supply hidden in the shed, and within an hour, I'm back online while Brenda's probably expecting me to be fumbling around in the dark. The real surprise comes later that day. I'm reviewing the surveillance footage when I notice something else. My mailbox, which was standing straight Tuesday morning, is now listing 15 degrees to the left. The newspaper I'd left on my front step is scattered across the yard like confetti. Petty vandalism. The calling card of someone who's lost control but isn't ready to give up. Time to turn up the heat. I document everything. The fuel theft, the mailbox vandalism, the trespassing signs. Then I file a formal complaint with the sheriff's department complete with video evidence. Not seeking arrest, just establishing a paper trail. Deputy Martinez, a no-nonsense woman with calloused hands and kind eyes, reviews the footage on her tablet while sitting at my kitchen table. "Mr. Thompson, this looks like escalating harassment. You want to press charges?" "Not yet, but I want it documented. Something tells me this is going to get worse before it gets better." She nods, understanding. Small community like this, sometimes people get territorial, but theft and vandalism cross a line. She hands me her card. You call me directly if anything else happens, day or night. That evening, I sit on my dock watching the sun set over the water, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that would make a postcard jealous. The smell of wood smoke drifts from someone's chimney, mixing with the clean scent of rain-washed air. Frank Casey approaches along the shoreline, moving carefully on the slippery rocks. Marcus, Dorothy's worried about you. We saw the police car today. Just documenting some incidents, Frank. Nothing to worry about. He settles onto the dock beside me, his old joints creaking like the wooden planks beneath us. That woman's getting desperate. Roger told me she missed 2 mortgage payments on their house. This catches my attention. Financial pressure? Investment properties aren't selling. Something about the market being soft. Frank's voice gets quieter. Roger thinks she might be borrowing against their retirement to keep afloat. The pieces click into place. Brenda's not just harassing me for kicks. She needs properties to flip, and she needs them fast. My cabin represents potential profit she can't afford to walk away from. Frank, if someone's drowning, they'll grab onto anything to stay afloat, even if it pulls others under. He nods grimly. Just be careful, son. Desperate people do dangerous things. As Frank heads home, I sit in the gathering darkness listening to the night symphony. Frogs, cicadas, the distant call of a night heron. Brenda's escalating because she's running out of options, which means her next move is going to be her biggest mistake yet. I'm ready for it. The breakthrough came from the most unexpected place, Uncle Ezra's old recipe box. I'm cleaning out the kitchen pantry, finding canned goods that expired during the Obama administration, when I knock over this wooden recipe box tucked behind the flour canister. Recipe cards scatter across the linoleum like oversized confetti, and that's when I see it. A sealed envelope marked, "For whoever comes after me," in Uncle Ezra's shaky handwriting. My hands are actually trembling as I tear it open. The letter inside is dated just 3 months before he died. If you're reading this, that means Brenda Whitmore is probably giving you hell. She's been after this property for 15 years, and I've got the documentation to prove it. Check the metal box under the loose floorboard in the bedroom closet. Everything's there. The real story of what she's been doing to folks around here. The floorboard squeaks like a rusty hinge when I pry it up. Inside the metal box, wrapped in plastic bags like evidence from a crime scene, are photographs, bank records, and a hand-drawn map of the community with houses marked in different colors. Red X's mark 5 properties. The Henderson's place, sold 2019 after mysterious septic emergencies. The Williams family, moved after their teenage son was repeatedly cited for noise violations from practicing guitar. The elderly Kowalski couple, relocated to assisted living after Brenda reported them for unsafe living conditions. Every red X represents a family that Brenda systematically harassed until they sold. Every property was purchased by Lakeshore Realty, Brenda's company, for 20–30% below market value, then flipped within 6 months. But Uncle Ezra had discovered something else. Bank records showing Brenda's investment scheme was failing spectacularly. She'd leveraged everything, her house, Roger's retirement account, even borrowed against their life insurance, to fund property flips that weren't selling. According to Uncle Ezra's notes, she owed $47,000 in back taxes on investment properties. Her real estate license had 3 formal complaints filed against it for aggressive solicitation tactics. She was bleeding money faster than she could acquire new properties to flip. The final piece of the puzzle hits me like a slap across the face. A copy of a desperate letter Brenda sent to Uncle Ezra just weeks before he died. "Mr. Hendricks, I'm prepared to offer $180,000 for your property, which is extremely generous considering the extensive repairs needed. I can have cash in hand by Friday if you sign the attached purchase agreement. This offer expires in 48 hours, and I cannot guarantee future opportunities will be as favorable." Market value for Uncle Ezra's property, $420,000 minimum. She wasn't just a control freak HOA president. She was running a systematic extortion racket, targeting vulnerable residents to feed her failing investment addiction. And now she was facing financial ruin if she couldn't acquire and flip properties fast enough to service her debts. I'm sitting on Uncle Ezra's bedroom floor, surrounded by evidence of a 15-year crime spree, when my phone buzzes. Text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at Rusty's Diner on Highway 9. Come alone. R. Roger." 30 minutes later, I'm sliding into a cracked vinyl booth across from Brenda's husband. He looks like he hasn't slept in weeks. Bloodshot eyes, stubble, shirt wrinkled like he slept in it. The diner smells like bacon grease and desperation, which feels oddly appropriate. She doesn't know I'm here, he starts without preamble. If she finds out, he shakes his head, stirring sugar into coffee with hands that won't stay steady. Roger, I know about the investment properties, the debt, the harassment scheme. His face goes white. How much do you know? Everything. Uncle Ezra documented it all. Roger closes his eyes like he's in physical pain. I tried to stop her, years ago when it started getting out of hand. But she said we were too far in to quit. Said one more flip would fix everything. How bad is it? We're 3 months from losing everything. The house, my retirement, her business license. She's borrowed against policies that don't even exist anymore. His voice drops to a whisper. Marcus, she's talking about doing something desperate, something that would force you to sell. The coffee in my cup suddenly tastes like ash. What kind of desperate? I don't know specifics, but she's been researching insurance claims, talking to contractors about accidental property damage. She thinks if your cabin becomes unlivable, you'll take a quick cash offer and disappear. The weight of it settles on me like a lead blanket. Brenda's not just harassing me. She's planning to destroy my home. But Roger's revelation gives me something more valuable than evidence. It gives me leverage. Roger, what if I told you there was a way to end this without destroying your lives? He looks up, hope flickering in his tired eyes like a candle in the wind. The road easement to your house runs through my property. One legal document, and Brenda's house becomes landlocked, worthless. The implications hit him immediately. You'd do that? Only if she forces me to. But if she backs off, completely, permanently, the easement stays in place. You keep your home, she keeps her license, and everyone moves on with their lives. Roger slumps back in the booth like a man who's been carrying a crushing weight and finally found somewhere to set it down. What do you need me to do? Outside, thunder rumbles in the distance, and the first drops of rain spatter against the diner's windows. Storm's coming. But for the first time since this whole mess started, I'm not the one who should be worried about getting caught in it. The war room was Uncle Ezra's dining table, covered in legal documents, property surveys, and enough coffee cups to caffeinate a small army. The smell of fresh brewed dark roast mixed with the musty scent of old papers as I assembled my team for what military folks call mission planning. Derek drove down from Atlanta that weekend, laptop bag slung over his shoulder like he was heading into battle, which, in a way, he was. Marcus, this easement situation is beautiful, he says, spreading the original 1987 agreement across the table. Your great-uncle was either psychic or paranoid, but this good neighbor clause is ironclad. Any pattern of harassment gives you grounds for revocation. How do we prove harassment legally? Documentation you've already got, plus witness testimony. But here's the sweet part. You don't have to prove it in court. Easement revocation is administrative. File the paperwork, provide evidence, done. Frank Casey shuffles over from next door, bringing Dorothy's homemade cinnamon rolls that smell like heaven and taste even better. At 73, Frank's got the mind of an engineer and the institutional memory of someone who's watched this community evolve for decades. I surveyed half these properties back in the 80s, he tells us, adjusting his reading glasses to study the boundary maps. Your uncle was smart keeping that road strip. Most developers would have deeded it to the community for maintenance costs. What about alternative access to Brenda's house? Frank shakes his head. Wetlands on 3 sides, your property on the 4th. Environmental permits for a new road would take years if they're even possible. That woman painted herself into a corner. Dorothy arrives with a casserole that fills the cabin with the warm smell of comfort food. But she's not just here for the cooking. Turns out the retired school principal has been quietly documenting HOA shenanigans for years. I kept copies of every illegal fee notice, every bogus violation, she explains, pulling a manila folder from her purse thicker than a phone book. Figured someday we'd need evidence. Brenda collected over $30,000 in assessment fees with no legal authority. The 4th member of our informal council arrives Sunday morning, Jake Morrison, a local contractor who looks like he arm wrestles bulldozers for fun. His work truck sounds like a diesel dragon as it rumbles up my driveway, scattering the morning silence. "Heard you might need some security improvements," Jake says, unloading enough lumber to build a small house. Frank filled me in on the situation. "That woman's been bad for business around here for years." "How so?" "Scares off new residents, drives down property values with her harassment tactics. Bad HOAs are like cancer for communities." He starts measuring my windows for security shutters. "Plus, your uncle was good to me, gave me work when I was just starting out." By Sunday evening, we've got a comprehensive strategy that covers every angle. Legal, Derek's preparing easement revocation paperwork, requiring 30-day notice before implementation. We're also filing complaints with the State Real Estate Board documenting Brenda's harassment tactics, not to destroy her license, but to establish leverage. Security. Jake's installing motion-activated cameras around the property perimeter, plus reinforced locks and window security film. If Brenda escalates to property damage, we'll have evidence that would stand up in court. Community. Dorothy's organizing informal neighborhood meetings to educate residents about their rights. Turns out most people had no idea the HOA was legally powerless, and several families want refunds for fees they've paid. Financial. We've documented Brenda's debt situation through public records. Property tax liens, missed mortgage payments, failed investment properties, all public information that reveals her desperation. The brilliant part of our plan isn't revenge, it's offering Brenda a way out with her dignity intact. Stop the harassment, acknowledge the HOA's legal issues, help transition to a voluntary neighborhood association. In return, the road easement stays in place, and her house keeps its value. Derek calls it mutually assured de-escalation. Everyone saves face, everyone keeps their property, everyone moves on. "But what if she doesn't take the deal?" Dorothy asks, refilling coffee cups as evening shadows stretch across the lake. "Then we implement Plan B," I reply, tapping the easement revocation paperwork. Her house becomes landlocked, unsellable, and worthless. Sometimes the best weapon is one you never have to use. Frank nods approvingly. "Your uncle would be proud. He always said the best victories are the ones where nobody has to lose everything." As my team disperses into the Sunday evening twilight, I sit on the deck listening to the familiar symphony of frogs and nightbirds. The air carries the scent of honeysuckle and possibilities. Roger's been texting me updates. Brenda's getting more erratic, talking about final solutions, and teaching that man a lesson he won't forget. She's borrowed another $15,000 against their home equity to fund some mysterious project. We're ready for whatever she's planning. Camera systems recording 24/7, neighbors aware and supportive, legal documents prepared for immediate filing. But I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. Cornered animals are dangerous, and Brenda Whitmore is definitely feeling cornered. The next phase of her desperation is about to begin. The question is whether she'll choose the exit ramp we're offering or drive straight off the cliff. Either way, I'm ready. Brenda's desperation hit new levels on a Tuesday that started perfectly normal. I'm having my morning coffee, watching a great blue heron stalk fish in the shallows, when my phone explodes with notifications. 23 missed calls, 17 voicemails, and a barrage of texts that make my blood run cold. The fake property management company called themselves Southeast Asset Recovery. Professional website, official-looking letterhead, the whole 9 yards. Their first move was placing a lien on my cabin for unpaid community maintenance fees totaling $18,000. I'm reading this legal-looking document, hands shaking with rage, when Derek calls back. "Marcus, this is sophisticated fraud. They've filed paperwork with the county claiming your property owes back assessments to a management company that didn't exist 3 weeks ago." His voice is tight with anger. "Whoever's behind this knows just enough law to be dangerous." How is this possible? Someone with real estate knowledge, access to legal forms, and enough desperation to commit multiple felonies. Derek pauses. The good news? Fake liens are serious federal crimes. The bad news? Until we get this sorted out, you can't sell or refinance your property. While I'm dealing with that bombshell, Brenda launches her social media assault. The Serenity Cove's Facebook group lights up with posts about suspicious activity at my property. Fake photos showing construction equipment that was never there. Claims I'm planning to subdivide the lot and build rental cabins. The posts are crafted to trigger every suburban fear: declining property values, increased traffic, loss of community character. Within hours, she's got half the neighborhood convinced I'm some kind of developer planning to turn their peaceful lake into a commercial resort. My phone rings constantly. Concerned neighbors, confused county officials, even a reporter from the local paper asking about my development plans. Each call requires 20 minutes of explanation, showing documents, proving negatives. But Brenda's not done. That evening, my security cameras catch something that makes my skin crawl. A dark sedan with Georgia plates circles my property 4 times between 11 p.m. and midnight. On the final pass, someone gets out and does something near my generator. The next morning, I find sugar in the gas tank. Classic sabotage that would have destroyed the engine if I'd started it without checking. But Uncle Ezra's paranoia had rubbed off on me. I'd gotten into the habit of checking fuel and oil levels every few days. Jake Morrison arrives 20 minutes after I call him, diesel truck rumbling like controlled thunder. The smell of coffee from his thermos mixes with morning lake air as he examines the generator. Sugar in gas tanks is mostly Hollywood bullshit, he explains, draining the contaminated fuel into a container. But it'll gum up fuel lines, cause expensive repairs. Someone wanted to hurt you without getting caught. Any way to prove who did it? Your cameras caught the car, right? That's evidence. Plus, this level of escalation suggests someone's getting desperate. Jake's weathered face shows concern. Marcus, people who escalate to property damage don't usually stop there. He's right. The pattern is classic. Harassment, legal threats, sabotage, then what? I've seen this progression in domestic violence cases, workplace disputes, neighborhood feuds that end in tragedy. Time to call in professional help. Deputy Martinez arrives that afternoon, her patrol car kicking up dust as she navigates my gravel driveway. She's all business, taking photos, documenting evidence, asking the kind of detailed questions that suggest she's seen this escalation pattern before. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to be straight with you. Whoever's doing this is escalating rapidly. Fake liens, property sabotage, surveillance. This isn't amateur hour anymore. What's your recommendation? Legally, we've got enough for harassment charges, possibly criminal mischief, but prosecuting won't happen overnight, and it might make things worse short term. She studies the security footage on her tablet. You got somewhere safe you can stay for a few days while we sort this out? I almost laugh. Deputy, this is my home. I'm not running from some wannabe property flipper having a midlife crisis. She nods, understanding. Then we do this the hard way. I'll increase patrols, put a watch on your property. You keep documenting everything. Don't engage directly, and call me immediately if anything escalates further. That evening brings an unexpected development. Roger Whitmore appears at my back door like a ghost, looking around nervously before stepping inside. The man's lost 20 pounds since I first met him, stress etched into every line of his face. She's lost it completely, he whispers, accepting a cup of coffee with hands that tremble slightly. Spent 15 grand on some business consultant who's helping her file legal papers. She's talking about hiring private investigators, maybe even physical solutions. Physical solutions? She mentioned contractors who do specialized property remediation. I think she's talking about making your cabin uninhabitable. Roger's voice cracks. Marcus, I'm scared of what she might do. This isn't the woman I married. The coffee suddenly tastes like ash. We're past harassment, past legal games, past rational negotiation. Brenda's entering territory where desperation overrides judgment, where people convince themselves that extreme actions are justified by extreme circumstances. Roger, I need you to document everything she's planning. Dates, names, amounts paid. Can you do that? He nods miserably. I've been keeping records, hiding them in my tackle box. If something happens to you, if she goes too far... He trails off. Nothing's going to happen to me. But if she escalates further, I'm going to end this permanently. After Roger leaves, I sit on my deck in the gathering darkness, listening to the familiar night sounds of the lake. Somewhere across the water, a loon calls out with that haunting voice that sounds like loneliness made audible. Tomorrow I'm filing the easement revocation paperwork. 30-day notice, then Brenda's house becomes legally inaccessible. Nuclear option, but she's forcing my hand. The time for playing defense is over. Time to remind Brenda Whitmore that desperate people aren't the only ones who can escalate. The fake emergency call came at 3:47 a.m. on a Wednesday that will forever be burned into my memory. I'm jerked awake by the sound of diesel engines and flashing lights cutting through my bedroom curtains like angry red lightning. 6 sheriff's deputies, a bomb squad van, and enough firepower to invade a small country. All because someone called in an anonymous tip about a disturbed veteran stockpiling weapons and making threats against the community. I stumble onto my front porch in boxers and a t-shirt, hands visible, moving slowly like you do when you're black and surrounded by nervous cops at 4 a.m. The air smells like diesel exhaust and adrenaline. Marcus Thompson? The lead deputy's voice is professional but tense. We received a report about weapons and potential terrorist activity at this address. Deputy, I'm a veteran with legally owned firearms locked in a safe. You're welcome to check my permits. I keep my voice calm, even though my heart's hammering like a woodpecker on espresso. This sounds like another false report from my neighbor. 3 hours later, after they've searched every inch of my cabin and found nothing more dangerous than a kitchen knife and my legally registered handgun, Deputy Martinez pulls me aside. Marcus, whoever called this in knew specific details about your military service, your consulting work, even your divorce records. This wasn't random harassment. Her face is grim in the morning light. Someone's doing serious research on you, trying to build a case for you being dangerous. Any way to trace the call? Burner phone, call made from a gas station 30 miles away. But the details they provided, this had to come from someone with access to private databases. The implications hit me like cold water. Brenda's not just desperate. She's gone full private investigator, digging into my background looking for ammunition to use against me. While I'm dealing with the aftermath of the fake weapons report, Brenda launches her media campaign. Local newspaper gets an anonymous tip about troubled veteran with history of violence. Completely fabricated, but damage is done before the editor can verify the claims. My phone starts ringing with reporters, neighbors, even my ex-wife calling to ask if I'm having episodes again. The story spreads through social media like wildfire. Armed veteran under investigation in Lake community. None of it's true, but truth doesn't matter when fear gets its hooks in people. My IT consulting clients start canceling contracts. The medical practice that's been my biggest account sends a terse email about reputational concerns and patient safety protocols. 15 years of building professional credibility wiped out by one anonymous phone call. But Brenda's biggest mistake is underestimating how well I've prepared for this moment. Every fake report, every malicious lie, every attempt at character assassination gets documented with military precision. Timestamps, screenshot evidence, witness statements. Derek's building a federal case for stalking, harassment, and defamation that could put Brenda in prison for years. The community response surprises everyone, including me. Dorothy Casey organizes a coffee and clarity meeting at the community center, inviting every resident to hear the actual facts instead of Facebook rumors. 32 people show up, the largest community gathering in years. The building smells like fresh coffee and nervous energy as Dorothy stands at a folding table covered with documents. Folks, we've been living with systematic harassment for years, and it's time to face the truth about what's been happening in our community. She presents evidence of Brenda's illegal fee collections, the fake HOA registrations, the documented pattern of targeting elderly and minority residents. Frank Casey provides surveying records showing property boundary disputes fabricated from thin air. The Johnson family, who'd been avoiding me since Brenda's Whisper campaign began, stands up to apologize. "We were scared," Mrs. Johnson admits, her voice shaking. "Brenda told us Marcus was dangerous, that our kids weren't safe, but after seeing this evidence," she gestures toward the documents, "we've been manipulated by someone who profits from our fear." The tide turns completely when Roger Whitmore appears at the back of the room carrying a cardboard box that looks like it weighs 1,000 pounds. "I have something to add," he announces, his voice barely above a whisper. "Documentation of everything my wife has done over the past 5 years. Bank records showing payments to private investigators, contracts with fake property management companies, email correspondence planning harassment campaigns against multiple residents. The evidence is overwhelming and damning." "She's not well," Roger continues, tears streaming down his face. "Financial pressure broke something inside her, and I didn't know how to stop it. But I can't let her destroy innocent people to save our house." The room falls silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and someone quietly crying. After the meeting, I find myself surrounded by neighbors offering support, apologies, help with anything I need. The community that had been fractured by years of fear and manipulation is coming together around the simple truth that nobody deserves what Brenda put me through. But Brenda's not finished. That night, my security cameras catch her car parked across the street from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m., just sitting there, engine running, like she's working up courage for something final. The next morning brings the last escalation. A process server at my door with papers for a restraining order. Brenda's claiming I threatened her at the community meeting, that I'm stalking her family, that she fears for her safety. All lies, but legally binding lies that could restrict my access to my own property. Derek drives down that afternoon, briefcase in hand and fire in his eyes. Marcus, she's throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks, but she just made her biggest mistake. How so? Filing false restraining order paperwork is perjury. Combined with the fake emergency calls, the fabricated liens, the harassment campaign, we've got her on multiple felonies. He spreads the legal documents across my kitchen table. Time to end this permanently. That evening, I sit on my deck watching the sun set over the lake, painting the water in shades of gold and orange that no camera could capture. The air smells like wood smoke from someone's fireplace, mixed with the clean scent of water and possibility. Tomorrow we file everything. The easement revocation, the federal harassment charges, the defamation lawsuit, nuclear options, but Brenda's forced us into this corner with her escalating desperation. Part of me feels sorry for her. Financial pressure can break anyone, make them do things they never imagined possible. But sympathy ends when someone tries to destroy your life to save theirs. The loons are calling across the water, their haunting voices echoing off the hills like ghosts of all the peaceful evenings Brenda's harassment has stolen from me. Time to take them back. The monthly HOA meeting on October 15th will go down in Serenity Cove's history as the night everything changed. Word had spread through the community like wildfire. This wasn't going to be another boring discussion about mailbox colors and grass height violations. The community center parking lot was packed by 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the scheduled start. Cars I'd never seen before, neighbors who hadn't attended a meeting in years, even some folks from the next community over who'd heard about our situation through the local grapevine. Inside, the usual smell of old coffee and floor wax was overwhelmed by nervous energy and the sharp scent of anticipation. 43 people crammed into a space designed for 20, folding chairs arranged in rows facing Brenda's usual table at the front. But tonight, the power dynamics were different. Derek sat in the front row, briefcase at his feet like a loaded weapon. Deputy Martinez stood near the back door, officially observing, but really there in case things got ugly. Sarah Casey from the local newspaper had her recorder app running, Dorothy's invitation, ensuring whatever happened tonight would become public record. Brenda entered at exactly 7 p.m., Roger trailing behind her like a defeated shadow. She looked different, thinner, more brittle, designer clothes that couldn't hide the stress fractures showing around her eyes. But her voice was steady as she called the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming to address the ongoing security concerns affecting our community. I almost laughed. Security concerns. Like I was some kind of terrorist threat instead of a guy who just wanted to drink coffee on his deck in peace. As you know, we've had ongoing issues with a new resident whose activities have raised serious questions about community safety and property values. She gestured toward a manila folder thick with fabricated evidence. Tonight I'm proposing an emergency assessment of $5,000 per household to fund enhanced security measures. The room erupted. $5,000 was mortgage payment money for most of these retirees. Voices overlapped in confusion and anger until Frank Casey stood up, using his surveyor's authority to command attention. Brenda, before we discuss assessments, maybe we should discuss legal authority, specifically whether this HOA has any legal standing to collect fees or enforce rules. Brenda's confident facade flickered. Frank, these are minor administrative issues that don't affect— Actually, they do. I stood up slowly, feeling 43 pairs of eyes on me. Because as of this morning, I filed formal paperwork revoking the road easement that provides access to your house. The room went dead silent. You could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, someone's stomach rumbling, the distant sound of traffic on Highway 9. What that means, I continued, my voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence, is that in 30 days, you'll have no legal right to use the road that leads to your property. Your house becomes landlocked, worthless. Brenda's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and raw panic. You can't do that. That's— That's illegal. Derek stood up, briefcase clicking open with the sound of inevitability. Actually, it's completely legal. The original easement agreement contained a good neighbor clause that allows revocation in cases of harassment or intimidation of the property owner. He started pulling out documents, spreading them on the table like playing cards. Which brings us to the extensive evidence of systematic harassment, including fake emergency calls, fraudulent liens, property sabotage, and defamation campaigns. This is ridiculous. Brenda's voice cracked like thin ice. Marcus Thompson is a disturbed individual who's been threatening our entire community. That's when Dorothy Casey stood up, her retired principal voice cutting through the chaos like a school bell. Brenda Whitmore, I have sat quietly for 5 years while you terrorized this community. No more. She opened her own folder, thick with documentation. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a list of illegal fees this woman collected from a legally defunct HOA, over $30,000 in unauthorized assessments. Frank Casey added his voice to the chorus. Property surveys showing fabricated boundary disputes designed to intimidate homeowners into selling below market value. The Johnson family stood together. Harassment of our children, threats against our family for the crime of befriending our neighbor. One by one, residents stood up to share their stories. Years of intimidation, bogus violation notices, legal threats over non-existent rules. The community that had been silenced by fear was finally finding its voice. But the knockout punch came from the most unexpected source. Roger Whitmore stood up in the back of the room, cardboard box in his hands like he was carrying evidence from a crime scene. I have bank records showing payments to fake property management companies, his voice barely above a whisper. Email correspondence planning harassment campaigns, financial documents proving my wife has been running an extortion scheme for years. He walked to the front of the room, each step echoing in the absolute silence. She borrowed $57,000 against our house to fund this operation. 3 families have already been driven out by her tactics. Marcus was supposed to be the 4th. Brenda's composure finally shattered completely. Roger, you son of a bitch, how dare you? Enough! The voice came from Deputy Martinez, stepping forward with handcuffs already in hand. Ma'am, based on evidence presented tonight and complaints filed this week, you're under arrest for filing false police reports, harassment, and fraud. But I held up my hand, stopping the deputy mid-stride. The room held its breath. Actually, Deputy, I'd like to make a different proposal. I looked directly at Brenda, seeing not a monster but a broken woman who'd let desperation override her humanity. Here's the deal. You apologize to this community for years of harassment. You help us establish a legitimate neighborhood association with term limits and financial transparency. You stop all legal actions against me and other residents. I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. In return, the road easement stays in place. You keep your house, your freedom, and whatever dignity you have left. The room erupted again, but this time with voices of support. Take the deal, Brenda. It's more than you deserve. Think about Roger. Brenda looked around the room at faces that had once feared her, now showing something that might have been pity. Her empire of intimidation had crumbled in a single evening, but I was offering her a way to walk away from the rubble. She signed the agreement with shaking hands, her signature barely legible through what might have been tears or just defeat. As people filed out into the October evening, the mood was strange. Not quite celebration, more like relief after a long illness finally breaks. The community center smelled like freedom and new beginnings. Frank Casey shook my hand at the door. Your uncle would be proud, son. You found a way to win without destroying anyone. Deputy Martinez nodded approvingly. Sometimes the best justice is the kind that lets everyone go home. Outside, the lake reflected a canopy of stars, and for the first time in months, the night sounds seemed peaceful instead of ominous. The war was over. Now came the harder work of healing. 6 months later, I'm sitting on my deck watching the sunrise paint the lake in liquid gold, steam curling up from my coffee mug into the crisp morning air. The sound of loons calling across the water has become my daily meditation, that haunting, beautiful voice that sounds like peace made audible. The cabin renovation turned into something magical. Jake Morrison's crew showed up every weekend, refusing payment but demolishing Dorothy's apple pies and enough beer to float a small boat. What started as security improvements became a full restoration that honored Uncle Ezra's vision, while adding touches that make it truly mine. My kids visit every other weekend now, and the transformation is beautiful to watch. Kevin's become a fishing prodigy under Frank Casey's patient tutelage, while Jasmine treats the place like her personal art studio, painting watercolors of herons and sunsets that capture something I never could with words. The community metamorphosis has been breathtaking. Our voluntary neighborhood association meets monthly, but these gatherings feel like family reunions. Frank Casey serves as our first elected president, 1-year terms, no exceptions. Dorothy's newsletter now features fishing reports and recipes instead of legal threats. The lake itself seems to exhale relief. Our cleanup day removed decades of accumulated junk from the shoreline. We've built fish habitat structures, planted native vegetation, brought back the ecosystem that urban development had slowly strangled. Property values increased 15% this year as word spreads about our cooperative lake community. Brenda and Roger moved to North Carolina in February, their house selling for full market value thanks to the preserved road access. Roger stopped by before they left, looking healthier than I'd seen him in years. "She's getting help," he told me, voice carrying hope instead of defeat. "Therapy, financial counseling, the pressure broke something in her, but she's putting the pieces back together." I nodded, understanding. Desperation can transform anyone into their worst self. True character shows when you get the chance to start over. The Ezra Hendricks Memorial Scholarship now provides $2,000 annually to students studying environmental science. Our Lake Unity Festival brings together 3 communities every summer: music, food, kids jumping off every dock in sight, the smell of barbecue mixing with clean lake air and pure joy. The State Environmental Department designated us a model for community conservation. Great blue herons have returned in numbers not seen in decades, their prehistoric calls echoing across water that reflects more than just sky. It reflects what people can accomplish when they choose cooperation over conflict. My consulting business transformed too. Instead of chasing corporate contracts, I help small communities implement technology that brings people together. Databases for volunteer groups, websites for nonprofits, systems that solve problems instead of creating them. Last month, Tennessee called. Another community facing systematic HOA harassment, elderly residents being targeted with fake violations and forced sales. Derek and I drove over with documentation, legal templates, and a step-by-step organizing guide. Turns out Brenda's playbook isn't unique. It's a systematic scam targeting rural communities across the Southeast. We're working with legislators to make this kind of harassment a felony, ensuring what we endured can't happen to the next family. This morning, Frank texts, 3 new families moving in this summer, all heard about our drama-free lake living. Dorothy's making welcome casseroles. I smile, remembering Uncle Ezra's letter about fighting for what's right. He couldn't have known his stubborn documentation would lead to healing for everyone involved, including the person who tried to destroy him. The lake reflects perfect blue sky, disturbed only by a beaver's purposeful wake heading toward breakfast. Children's laughter echoes from the Johnson dock, mixing with the call of returning loons. This is what community should sound like. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and share your HOA horror story. I guarantee some of you have dealt with situations that make Brenda look like a rookie. Your experiences might help someone else fighting their own neighborhood dictator. And if you enjoyed watching community organizing and strategic documentation defeat systematic harassment, smash that subscribe button for HOA Stories and hit the notification bell. Next week, I'm exposing the Tennessee property management scam where one 82-year-old grandmother's refusal to be bullied saved 40 families from financial ruin. Trust me, that story will restore your faith in ordinary people doing extraordinary things when they refuse to stay silent. Remember, bullies count on isolation and ignorance. Community strength and legal knowledge are your best weapons against systematic harassment. And sometimes the most powerful response to hatred is simply refusing to hate back. Thanks for being part of the HOA Stories family, and I'll see you next week when we dive into another battle for justice in suburbia. Until then, keep fighting the good fight.
Another day, another HOA drama wrapped up. If this story made you shake your head or fist pump in victory, smash that like button, share your own HOA experience below, and subscribe so you'll never miss another battle in the burbs.